The first rule of the galactic tournament was simple. No one entered by choice. That was the lie everyone repeated, anyway. In reality, the invitations came in many forms: gold-etched summons delivered by royal emissaries, encrypted transmissions burning through military networks, or, in rarer cases, a single name whispered into the void by something ancient enough to be listening. Mine arrived as a corpse. The man collapsed 3 meters from my table, face down in the red dust of Karen Station's lower ring. One moment he was walking, the next he was dead. No scream. No warning. Just a soft, final sound as his body struck the ground. The crowd scattered instantly. On Karen Station, death was common, but sudden death still carried meaning. People knew better than to linger. Within seconds, the corridor was empty except for me, the corpse, and the slow hiss of pressure seals cycling in the distance. I didn't move. I had learned long ago that when the universe drops something at your feet, running is often the worst option. The man wore no insignia, but his coat was expensive, real synth silk, reinforced at the collar. Not a local. His right hand was clenched tight, knuckles white even in death. I waited until the station's emergency lights dimmed back to normal, then crouched and pried his fingers open. A ring fell into my palm. It was heavy, warm, and wrong. The metal wasn't any alloy I recognized, dark and glossy like obsidian, but threaded with faint lines of light that pulsed in slow, deliberate patterns. At its center was a sigil, an angular crown split by a vertical blade. I knew that symbol. Every fighter in the galaxy did. My stomach tightened. Impossible, I muttered. The crown of accord. The mark of the galactic tournament. The ring vibrated once, sharp and sudden, like a heartbeat against my skin. A projection flared to life above it, bathing the corridor in pale blue light. A woman's face formed in the air, regal, severe, and unmistakably royal. She wore a circlet of living crystal, her silver hair pulled back in ceremonial braids. Her eyes were the color of dying stars. "Eric Valen," she said, voice carrying the weight of empires. "By ancient law and binding oath, you are summoned." I froze. No one used my full name anymore. "Your combat record has been reviewed," she continued. "Your genetic markers confirmed. Your victories acknowledged." Victories. I almost laughed. "Yes, you survived," she said, as if reading the thought. "Survival is sufficient." The projection widened, revealing a vast arena, impossibly large, ringed by spires and banners that shimmered with energy. Millions of voices roared as one, a sound so loud it distorted the image itself. "The galactic tournament convenes in 30 standard cycles," the woman said. "You will attend." "What if I don't?" I asked, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. Her gaze sharpened. "Then your planet will." The image shifted again. Karen Station vanished, replaced by a blue-green world I knew too well. Oceans. Cloud bands. A fractured moon hanging low in the sky. Home. "Participation is mandatory," she said calmly. "Victory is optional." The ring grew hotter. "And the prize?" I asked. For the first time, the woman hesitated. "The prize," she said, "will be revealed upon your ascension." The projection collapsed inward, sealing itself back into the ring. The metal cooled instantly, dull and inert once more. Silence returned to the corridor. I stared down at the corpse, then at the ring in my hand. The galactic tournament. A ritual older than most star nations. A competition designed to prevent all-out war by sacrificing champions instead. Every major power sent its strongest, its strangest, its most dangerous. Very few returned. None ever declined. I slipped the ring onto my finger. It tightened, adjusting to fit, and locked in place with a soft click that echoed far too loudly in the empty corridor. Above me, Cairn Station's public address system crackled to life. Attention, residents. Please remain calm. A transport vessel registered to the High Concord has docked at Gate 7. I exhaled slowly. So that was how it began. Not with glory, not with choice, but with a dead messenger, a stolen future, and a crown that did not care whether I wanted it or not. And I had no idea yet that winning the tournament would be the least of my problems. The transport waited at Gate 7 like a judgment already passed. It wasn't large by military standards, but it didn't need to be. The hull was seamless, silver black, etched with the same sigil as the ring now fused to my finger. No visible weapons. No visible engines. Just a shape that bent the light around it slightly, like reality itself was uncomfortable standing too close. Two figures stood at the base of the boarding ramp. They were not guards. Guards shift their weight. Guards look bored or tense or human. These two stood perfectly still. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Wrapped head to toe in articulated armor the color of bleached bone. Their helmets were smooth and featureless except for a single vertical slit glowing faint blue. Enforcers of the High Concord. They didn't acknowledge me as I approached. Didn't block me either. The ramp unfolded the moment I stepped within 3 meters, responding to the ring before I even lifted my foot. I paused. Behind me, Cairn Station hummed on. Vendors reopening stalls, smugglers drifting back into shadowed alcoves, people convincing themselves they hadn't just watched a man die because the universe wanted something from someone else. I wondered how many of them would still be alive by the end of the tournament. Then I boarded the ship. The interior was deceptively simple. A single corridor of polished, dark metal led inward, illuminated by soft ambient light with no visible source. No seams. No doors. Just a sense of depth that made the space feel larger than it should have been. The ramp sealed behind me with a soundless finality. Eric Valen. A voice said, not aloud, but everywhere at once. Please proceed. I walked. The corridor opened into a circular chamber dominated by a single structure, a throne-like seat grown rather than built, its surface composed of interlocking crystalline plates that shifted subtly as I approached. I stopped short. I don't kneel, I said. There was a pause. Noted, the voice replied. You may sit. The chair reconfigured instantly, lowering itself, reshaping into something closer to a pilot's seat. Straps unfolded, hovering expectantly. I hesitated only a moment before sitting. The restraints closed around my arms, legs, chest, firm but not painful. The ring flared. Light exploded outward. For an instant, I felt like I was falling, not through space, but through layers of existence peeling away one by one. My vision fragmented. My thoughts stretched thin. Then it stopped. Stars filled the chamber. Not a screen. Not a projection. Real stars. The ship had already jumped. I exhaled shakily, forcing my breathing to slow. Where are you taking me? To the assembly world, the voice replied. Neutral ground. The tournament's cradle. Who are you? I asked. I am the arbiter, it said. I exist to ensure compliance, continuity, and survival. Survival of who? Another pause. Longer this time. Of the galaxy, the arbiter said. At acceptable cost. That told me everything I needed to know. The restraints released. The seat retracted, dissolving back into the floor as if it had never been there. A panel of light formed in the air before me, filling with text and imagery. Competitor dossier, Eric Valen. Species, human, Terran variant. Augmentation, moderate, unauthorized. Combat specialization, adaptive close quarters, improvised weaponry. Threat assessment, unpredictable. Below that, a rotating image of me, scars mapped in clinical detail, internal enhancements highlighted in cold blue. You've been watching me? I said. Observation is necessary, the arbiter replied. The tournament requires balance. The display shifted. Galactic Tournament, 47,392nd convocation. Participants, 128. Expected survivors, 1. My jaw tightened. Only one winner, I said. Yes. And the prize? The display flickered, then resolved into a new image. A young woman stood on a balcony overlooking a city that gleamed like a constellation made solid. Towers of crystal and alloy spiraled skyward, connected by bridges of light. She wore ceremonial armor, sleek, elegant, unmistakably royal. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Intelligent. Dangerous. Designate: Princess Lyra Vescari. Dynasty: Solari Crown. Status: airbound. My chest tightened for an entirely different reason. What does she have to do with this? I asked quietly. The arbiter did not answer immediately. When the tournament was first conceived, it said at last, victory was rewarded with power. Territory. Influence. The image zoomed out, revealing banners of ancient empires now reduced to dust. Power breeds war, the arbiter continued. War breeds extinction. The prize was revised. The display changed again. 2 figures stood beneath the crown of accord. One wore a champion's mantle. The other wore a royal circlet. A binding, the arbiter said. Biological. Political. Symbolic. I felt cold. You're marrying the winner to a princess, I said. Yes. To stop wars. To postpone them, the arbiter corrected. By uniting strength with legitimacy. I stared at Lyra's image, searching her face for some hint of consent. She doesn't look like a prize, I said. She is not, the arbiter replied. She is a participant of a different kind. That unsettled me more than anything else it had said. The display dissolved. You will arrive in 6 cycles, the arbiter said. Rest. Prepare. Survive. The lights dimmed. Stars slid silently past as the ship carried me toward a fate I hadn't agreed to, toward an arena where the galaxy would bleed for peace, and where winning meant surrendering the last thing I thought was still mine. My future. Part 3. The world where wars are postponed. The assembly world didn't orbit a star. It hovered at the intersection of gravitational forces, so precisely balanced that no sun could claim it. Light came from everywhere, reflected, refracted, bent through layers of artificial sky that shifted color as the planet slowly rotated. From orbit, it looked like a jewel suspended in nothing. From the surface, it felt like standing inside the eye of the universe. The transport descended through controlled airspace lined with other vessels, warships, diplomatic cruisers, organic carriers grown from living matter. Every major civilization had sent something. Every civilization had sent someone. The landing platform stretched for kilometers, segmented into zones marked by sigils I recognized from history feeds and battlefield intel. Old enemies parked side by side under the watchful presence of Concord sentinels. Peace, enforced by inevitability. As the ramp lowered, sound hit me first, a low, constant murmur of voices speaking in 100 languages, layered with the hum of energy fields and distant announcements echoing across the platform. Competitors. I stepped out. The ring pulsed once, subtly, and a path illuminated beneath my feet. A corridor of light guided me forward through the chaos, without a single being stepping into my way. They felt it. Every champion did. That invisible weight of expectation, fear, and curiosity. I caught glimpses as I walked. A towering brute with skin like obsidian plates, for arms folded across a chest riddled with old scars. A woman whose lower body dissolved into mist, eyes glowing with contained storms. A creature encased in a floating sphere of liquid metal, tendrils tapping against the barrier in restless patterns. And then there were the humans. Not many. Most species considered us too fragile, too short-lived. The few who stood here wore the look of veterans who had survived things they didn't talk about anymore. The path led to a vast concourse open to the sky. At its center rose a structure that stole the breath from my lungs. The arena of Accord. It wasn't a single arena. It was many, layered and shifting, an ever-changing labyrinth of battlefields that could reshape themselves between matches. Platforms floated and rotated, terrain assembling and disassembling like a living thing. Energy shields shimmered faintly, containing environments lethal enough to crack planets. Above it all hovered the crown. Massive. Ancient. Real. Not a symbol, the crown. The source of the tournament's authority. My ring grew warm. Competitor Eric Valen. A voice announced, amplified across the concourse. Report to Orientation Spire 9. A ripple of attention moved through the crowd. Some looked at me with interest. Others with hunger. Orientation was a misnomer. Spire 9 was a coliseum in miniature, seats rising in concentric circles around a central platform. Dozens of competitors stood there already, loosely grouped by species or standing alone. I took my place. The air shimmered and the arbiter manifested, not as a voice this time, but as a towering holographic figure clad in shifting geometric armor, its face a smooth void. You stand here because the galaxy cannot afford your absence, it intoned. The tournament exists to select a champion capable of carrying the crown's burden. The crown above the arena pulsed in response. Combat will proceed in phases, the arbiter continued. Elimination. Ascension. Final accord. Images flashed around us. Past champions, their victories immortalized, their faces slowly fading into anonymity as history moved on. Death is expected, the arbiter said calmly. Refusal is impossible. A murmur rippled through the competitors. Victory, it concluded, will bind you to the future. The arbiter vanished. Silence hung heavy. Then a voice spoke beside me. First time, I turned. The speaker was human, maybe a decade older than me. Tall, lean, cybernetic, eye glowing faintly red. He wore light combat armor scuffed by use, not display. Yeah, I said. He snorted. Figured. You still look like you think this is about skill. What's it really about? I asked. Endurance, he replied. Adaptation. And knowing when to stop being who you were. To a woman I'd never met, chosen to stabilize empires. Then losing might be the only freedom left.